Crustle might just be the single most terrifying deck that you'll probably never actually hit at a tournament. It genuinely has ridiculously favorable matchups into a significant portion of the meta. So many decks have absolutely no way to handle the crab and just straight up fold to it. But here's the thing, almost no one is actually playing it, and there are two extremely valid reasons why. The deck is about as slow as you'd expect a hermit crab with a giant boulder on its back to be. You've got no engine, no real acceleration, and barely draw any cards. And if that wasn't bad enough, you have an absolutely abysmal Gardevoir matchup. You can't be taking an auto loss to the deck that wins pretty much every tournament. However, I believe Crustle's time lurking at the bottom of tier lists is about to be over, because it's just found a new best friend, Zoroark EX. Today, I'm going to give you a detailed breakdown of every card in the 60, then I'll be sleeving the deck up in the most beautiful set of Dragon Shields you've ever seen, and trying to win a tournament. I won't spoil it now, but in one of the rounds, we're going to find out if Crustle can overcome its arch nemesis. Anyway, let's start examining this beautiful work of art. First up, we've got a 3/3 count of each of our main Pokemon lines. Crustle's mysterious Rock-In ability is the perfect counter to so many EX-focused decks. While they're desperately trying to chip away at your relatively massive HP for a one-prizer, Crustle can just keep smacking them for 120 with its superb scissors attack. Also, make sure that you play the Dwebble from Destined Rivals. It may not have a beautiful ult art like the black and white crab, but the Ascension attack is crucial for immediately getting the deck's core strategy online as early as turn 1 going second. While Zoroark is mostly present for its incredible draw engine, seriously, trade is just always so good. But I'll never turn down the option for a good attack, especially when Dark Weakness is so relevant right now. Because of this, we've got one Ends Reshiram to enable Night Joker as a viable option, but I could definitely see bumping this count up to 2. Of course, there's also a couple Monkey Dories slapped in here too. It's arguably the best Pokemon in the game, helps keep Crustle alive as our opponents hopelessly attempt to break through the wall, and the damage we bounce back with Adrenabrain can really fix some key maths, particularly against any pesky Pokemon just outside that 120 threshold. When it comes to trainers, I'm going to start by talking about our A-Spec, Secret Box. Since we're only able to play a single one of these spicy purple cards, they are always core to the deck strategy, and in this case, massively impacts many of the other deck building decisions. Being able to search out an item, tool, supporter, and stadium doesn't just add an enormous amount of consistency to an otherwise clunky deck, it also drastically increases the flexibility when it comes to one-of tech cards. So if there are any personal favorites that you want to slot into the list, go for it. You'll easily be able to find them off of Secret Box. And thanks to the 4 Arvid in our deck, we'll be able to find Secret Box whenever we need it. Yeah, that's right, we're playing 4 Arvid and Secret Box again. You can't stop me. Next up, 3 Boss's Orders. Gusting is extremely important for a deck like this, since a lot of the time, the optimal strategy revolves around picking off our opponent's few key threats that can actually deal with the crusty wall. Things like looping Baby Goldengos, stacks of Monkey Dories, or any Pokemon with shred attacks like Cornerstone Ogerpon, even if it is weak to grass. The Gusting is even better because we can usually just ignore whatever big Pokemon is thrown in the active since it can't touch the crab. We've got a couple Crispin to search out energy and accelerate those superb scissors. There are enough games where just hand attaching 3 times is more than adequate, but a bit of extra speed never hurts. To Professor Turo's scenario, once we've achieved an optimal board state containing a couple of crabs, these supporters can be a great way to clean up any leftover liabilities. It allows us to more aggressively bench the extra draw engine fellas without fear of them giving up the final prizes at the end of a game. Plus, there are a few other cool applications, like saving a low HP Crustle that's been poked down to near death before it gives up any prize cards, or even double dipping on a Monkey Dory by using Adrenabrain, Turoing it up, and then benching it again and attaching another Dark Energy to Adrenabrain once more. Another 2-of supporter is Iono, and this is usually in much higher counts for slower decks. But to be honest, a lot of the time when I'm playing Crustle, I really don't care what's in my opponent's hand. I'm purely trying to win off of board state. Obviously, such a powerful card will always have its uses, and I've actually run into a fair few funny scenarios where I could use the fact that I've got the prize advantage to draw less cards off of Iono than my opponent and safely deck them out. Also, there's one Morty's Conviction in here. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to try it out and see if it was any good. It's nice for a bit of draw that's purely additive to the hand, and against Area Zero decks, this can provide incredible resource gain, but I didn't particularly love it. Thankfully, Secret Box making these niche supporters searchable means that these scenarios where they are powerful become a lot more accessible. useful. Feel free to throw in some other one-of tech supporters and see what you find useful. Personally, I really want to try Bianca's Devotion for some surprise healing that can absolutely crush our opponent's hopes and dreams. With all these great supporters, Pokegear is a no-brainer, although I could only find space for one, but even that single copy makes a huge difference. There's a particular play that it enables which I absolutely love. With decks like this, you'll often find yourself in board states where it's genuinely detrimental to attack the active. This is because you don't want to leave damage on your opponent's board when they have a bunch of Monkey Dories. In these instances, you're usually just waiting it out until you can draw and play boss's orders before your opponent progresses their board. Assuming that I've already burned through my secret box, what I love doing here is using Arven to search out Pokegear. This will almost guarantee boss's orders on the following turn if they don't disrupt my hand. And if they do, I'll be pretty likely to draw into it off of Iono anyway. This is way nicer than just draw passing and giving them 7 turns to do whatever they want. I've also included a Pal Pad. This is just generally a great utility card. I found it to be particularly useful for enabling lines in games where you just want to rip 5 bosses' orders. It also helps with more Ionos for endgame disruption and deck out strategies, or an extra Turo scenario if you happen to prize one or just have a bad starter. Of course, with all these 70 HP fellas, we've got a maxed out count of Buddy Buddy Poffin for the best turn 1 consistency. A single copy of Ultra Ball is here as well, as a flexible Arven searchable way to instantly get any of our Pokemon, even evolutions. Since we've got Secret Box, we do need some stadiums, and for this build, a couple of artisans seemed easiest to slot in. It's a great way to find Monkey Dories, Reshiram, and I just always love boosting a deck's consistency wherever I can. But considering we have the ability to functionally search stadiums off of Arven, it could definitely be worth experimenting with some more niche options, such as Practice Studio or Team Rocket's Watchtower. Now let's talk about some tools. With 4 Arven and Secret Box to support finding them all, we've got some pretty good options. 2 Technical Machine Evolution is our main method for finding Zoroark EX. Prioritizing setting up the draw engine is often the best approach. Once it's online, you can basically piece anything else together. However, there are still a lot of games where you do want to just start off with Ascension and establish the Zoroarks later. I've actually had a bunch of situations where I still made use of TM Evo in the mid game, and in case it wasn't obvious already, because we're playing 4 Arven and TM Evos, you definitely want to be going second with this deck. Even if you just end up going for turn 1 Ascension, it's still great. 2 Luxurious Capes to beef up Crussel's HP. 250 is enormous when you factor in that it can't be touched by EX Pokemon, and you often don't care about giving up the extra prize, especially when it won't be forfeited if you happen to be knocked out by something that isn't direct damage, like De-Evolution, Monkey Dory's Adrenabrain, or Phantom Dive's damage counters. Also important to note that you can potentially use the cape on Monkey Dory, Reshiram, or even Enzarua in order to sneak them out of range of certain attacks. Air Balloon is another easy inclusion. Usually you'll just be slapping this onto Zoroark or Reshiram so they can get out of the active without burning your supporter for turn on Professor Turo's scenario. And even more so than the one-of supporters and stadiums, this deck's engine is absolutely incredible at enabling unique one-of tools. So go and experiment with some spicy options. I was considering Technical Machine Turbo Energize to flood energy into play, Leftovers for passive healing, or even Binding Mochi and Petron EX to boost End Zoroark's damage potential. Usually, I'm a massive advocate for playing a ton of night stretches, but in this deck, we aren't exactly ripping Professor's research every turn. Plus, once a Crustle is properly established, it really shouldn't be getting knocked out anyway, so a single copy is definitely enough when combined with a Super Rod that adds a bit more flexibility to which resources you recycle. On top of this, there are actually a fair few situations where I only had a single energy type in deck. The Rod was great here to put the other type back into deck and allow Crispin to fully put in work. The only issue with this general lack of recovery is that if you ever need to go Zoroark mode and your opponent catches onto it, assuming they're chasing them down on site, they'll only need to KO 3 Reshirams to run you out of attacking options. This is something that a Gardevoir with Screamtail can absolutely do, and it is terrifying when they put you on a 3 attack clock. These last couple items add a ton of fun to what can sometimes otherwise be an incredibly linear deck. 2 Energy Switch allows you to shuffle your energy around the board and pull off sick plays out of nowhere, instantly shifting gears from Crustle to Zoroark mode, or just passing Dark between fresh Monkey Dories for a few surprise Adrenabrains. The single Ends PP up complements this perfectly, not only further supporting the Ends half of the deck, but also allowing you to spawn in an extra energy paired with Energy Switch to gift it to a more appropriate recipient. Last up is the energy. For basics, we've got a split of 5 Dark and 3 Grass. While we are generally using Crustle in more matchups, it only needs a single Grass to get going, so playing 3 is completely fine. Zoroark, on the other hand, needs double Dark, Zoroark. Plus, there's the obvious synergy with Monkey Dory. This means playing a higher count of darks makes the most sense. A single Luminous Energy is a flex card that can act as either, and it even lets Monkey Dory get attacking if it's ever trapped in the active or just wants to get in on the action. It's not worth playing too many of these though, because they won't work with each other or with our final card, 2 Mist Energy. These are absolutely vital for protecting our walls from key counterplay, such as Technical Machine De-Evolution, Monkey Dory's Mind Bend Confusion, and Mega Absol EX's Terminal Period. Also, just a heads up, this tournament was right before Mega Evolution dropped, so I couldn't play with any of the fancy new cards. Now that it's legal, I'd 100% recommend throwing in a couple of Lily's Determinations, as well as a Psyduck to counter any problematic Cursed Blasts. And if you're watching this video even further in the future, please include the Jumbo Ice Cream from Phantasmal Flames. That card is so sick and slots perfectly into this deck. Honestly, there might be even more reason to play the deck now than there was in the last meta. Anyway, with the list all sorted and my incredibly beautiful sleeves ready for action, it was time to lock in. This wasn't just your average league night. With $120 store credit on the line, the competition was pretty serious. Can the Crustle Zoroark combo take down all 3 of these best of 3 rounds? We'll just have to find out. But there is one more incredibly important thing that you've got to do before any tournament. Get some quality sleep. If you've watched any of my other videos, particularly when I'm competing at massive events, you probably know that I'm usually not too great at this. Luckily, this video is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Honestly, at first, I wasn't too sure about doing a sponsored segment, but they sent me this Manta Pro Mask to try out, and I genuinely love it. It's comfortable, high quality, and easily adjustable to any size. Plus, they're 100% blackout, and the soft, breathable eye cups won't put any pressure on your peepers. Shout out to Manta Sleep for revolutionizing the way I get my shut-eye. I'll absolutely be rocking one of these the night before every regional championship. Go check them out in the description below and make sure to use the code DANKLIN10 for 10% off anything you order. Anyway, now that I'm well rested, let's go win that tournament. Round 1 and my opponent flips over a Cleffa. That pretty much narrows it down to one of 2 decks, Charizard or End Zoroark. I'd happily rely on the Lasagna Crab for either of these matchups, so I immediately slam down a couple Dwebble as well as another End Zoroark. My suspicions are immediately confirmed as he benches his own End Zorua, attaching to it, nest balling for End's Reshiram, and then ending the turn with Grasping Draw for 3. Luckily, this isn't too threatening for me, and I kinda get the feeling that he doesn't have any way to break through the wall. Otherwise, he probably would have nest balled for it right off the bat. I evolve a Zoroark, start trading, and then Pokegear for a Crispin, which I immediately play. At this point, the ideal board state I want to start working towards is a couple of Caped Crustle and a bench Zoroark drawing me cards. I could have just retreated and used Ascension, but I decided to leave the Zorua active with an energy. Probably a minor mistake in hindsight, but I think it'll be fine. I did actively choose to not use Scratch though, since I'm not going to try and two-shot this Cleffa, and it could just end up as Monkey Dory damage my opponent could use later. They respond by powering up Zoroark and taking the KO on my Zorua. But this is exactly what I want, and that single prize should be completely irrelevant in their eventual map. If I can establish double Caped Crustle, I'll only be representing 2 prize Pokemon anyway, meaning that they'll still need to take 3 KOs and 6 more prizes regardless. But spoilers, after I use Ascension to turn this Dwebble into a Crustle, the game is functionally over. They really just have no way to deal any damage to this beefy crustacean. Well, they can scratch for 20 with Zorua, I guess. So yeah, that's basically how game 1 went. And you can probably guess how game 2 is going to go as long as I have an even half decent start. Oh, that's a nice shiny card. Look, we both knew the game was essentially over before it began, but my opponent was a great sport about things, and we had a bit of fun playing it out anyway and just bantering over the match. I know a lot of the time I'm competing at major events and each win can be worth thousands of dollars on their own, but at the end of the day, I just really enjoy playing the Pokemon TCG. Chilling out for this match was a ton of fun. So whether you're an incredibly competitive player looking to get better at the game, or don't even play Pokemon and just like listening to me yap, or literally anywhere in between, you should probably subscribe. I'm sure that I've got some content you'll love. And while I'm still busy winning game 2 of this match in the background, I thought I'd let you know that I've been starting to use my Instagram a bit more to post some behind the scenes and extra content. I was actually showing off this deck way before I had time to edit the full video. So if that's something you're interested in, go and chuck me a follow there as well. Anyway, that's an easy dub, all thanks to Crustle's mysterious rock-in ability. Let's get into round 2. Since this tournament is 3 rounds of Swiss, that means my opponent also won their previous round. And I already know what they're playing. Gardevoir, a completely unwinnable matchup for regular Crustle. But luckily, I've got my secret weapon. Let's see if it works. I start things off with a couple Zorua, knowing that attacking with Zoroark will be my main strategy this game. My opponent rips an Earthen Vessel and performs their first deck search. It's important to thoroughly check what you've got prized at the start of a game, but he takes a little bit longer than usual, and then lays out every Pokemon in his deck. Yep, double Gardevoir prize, so with essentially no real way to get things going, he scoops. Now, you could argue that in these positions it's worth trying to attach twice and take a prize with Clefairy, but some people just want to have a good game 2 and 3 without stressing for time. We set up for game 2, and once again, I have to go first. My start looks incredible with 3 Zorua, Reshiram, and an energy attachment. But if you could see my hand, you would realize that I am completely living off the top deck here. He sets up a couple routes, then passes back to me. But all I can do is Crispin to accelerate a few energy onto my Pokemon that I can't even find the evolutions for. And then of course, I make sure to scratch for 20. This will definitely be relevant. While I'm struggling to piece anything together, my opponent just rips Candy Gardevoir, Professor's Research, and fully sets everything up, ending off with a Roaring Scream to KO one of my bench Zoruas. Literally all I can do is Artisan for Monkey Dory, then scratch for 40. It bumps up Screamtail's damage by another 80, but this really doesn't matter when I've got nothing in play anyway. Adding insult to injury, my opponent Arvents for Secret Box. I wish I could do that this game. He doesn't even need any of the cards and just screams my Reshiram off the board. Finally, a Zoroark. Maybe this game isn't quite over. I trade away a Poffin for a couple more cards, but neither of them are that all-important draw supporter I am desperate for. So I just attach an energy and use Scratch for the third consecutive turn, finally taking my first prize of the game. But obviously, my opponent is still in a ridiculously good spot, setting up a Monkey Dory, easily taking their third KO, and even worse, the damage is already racking up on my only Zoroark. Because Flutter Mane is in the active, blocking my active Pokemon's abilities, I can't even promote Zoroark since I need those extra cards from trade. But I also need them to be good cards, and they're not. Hand attach, pass. He's about to go down to 2 prizes, and at this point, I already know the game is over. But I just want to make a point and get a single Zoroark attack off before I lose. I trade for a couple cards, find the Reshiram, get the KO, and then immediately lose to a giant Roaring Scream attack. Alright, that was rough, but now it's time for game 3. I finally get to go second, and surely this time we're going to get to play a proper game. It's off to a solid start. He's got a couple rolls, and I rip a Buddy Poffin for 2 more Zorua. However, now it's my turn to have a bit of an extended deck search. Maybe it's karma for what happened in game 1, but in this crucial game 3 that I literally cannot lose if I want to win the tournament, I have prized my one and only copy of N's Reshiram. That means, other than copying Zorua's Scratch, my Zoroark has no way to attack. So I'm going to have to somehow keep on taking prizes until I finally get back access to Virtuous Flame. And I'm going to have to do it all with Crustle. Fortunately, prizing aside, this is basically the most broken start I could ask for. Just look at that peak performance board state. And luckily, my opponent seems to be running low on gas, so I might just be able to power up the Crab in time. After seeing a few more cards off of trade, I rip a Crispin, and this one's actually a tough decision. Obviously, I want both energies on the Crustle so I can start swinging as soon as possible. But I think if I just immediately double attach there, it'll directly telegraph that I don't have access to Reshiram. I want my opponent to keep thinking that the primary threat here is Zoroark. So I decide to split the energy, prepping a Dark Energy onto Zoroark and finishing off my turn with a Scratch for 40. That move is seriously getting way too much usage this video. He draws a ton of cards, but somehow still no Gardevoir. However, those Monkey Dories are starting to come online and are about to become a massive threat. Luckily, all that damage is getting sent straight onto my Zoroark. Perfect, he's taking the bait. No Gardevoir yet means no attack, so now it's time for the Crab to start taking some KOs. Of course, I begin by trading for a few more cards, then rip Arvin for an energy switch and Luxurious Cape. This is going to help finish powering Crustle up and keep it beefy with an additional 100 HP. Then, Superb Scissors picks up an easy knockout on Monkey Dory. Unfortunately, the smooth sailing is over. I still don't have access to Reshiram, and he finally drew into Arvin for Secret Box to finish off the setup. Establishing Gardevoir blah, stacking more damage onto Zoroark and confusing my poor Crustle. I don't really have a great way around this confusion. Ideally, I would have already attached a Mist Energy onto the crab so that it couldn't be confused. But it's too late for that now, and it isn't able to retroactively heal the confusion, only prevent it from being applied in the first place. So after I evolve a second Zoroark and draw a few more cards, it's time to flip. Heads, I take the KO. Tails, I deal 30 damage to myself. Of course it's Tails, just my luck. With no reason to overextend, my opponent continues to play it slow and steady, Adrenabraining my Zoroark up to 90 damage and Mindbending once again to add another 60 damage onto Crustle. At this point, the only thing keeping it alive is that extra 100 HP from Luxurious Cape. When in doubt, draw a ton of cards. I use Trade, Morty's Conviction, and then another Trade to net me 9 fresh new cards. And in them, I find my second Crustle. Yeah, I know it's cropped off by this awful camera angle, but trust me, there's a backup crab on the way, though it doesn't have any energy yet. That Dark is going straight on Munkidori. This allows me to heal up Zoroark a bit, placing the 30 on his active Munkidori, since ideally I don't want to leave any extra damage on the board for him to play with. But of course, I'm not able to take the KO anyway because I roll another Tails. With that self-damage from Confusion, the decision is easy and he moves 30 right back onto it and Mind Bends for the KO, taking his first 2 prize cards. Luxurious Cape is so generous. But bam, there's the second Crustle from off screen. And I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I immediately slam down a Mist Energy and another Luxurious Cape. This fella is now immune to all secondary effects of attacks. Most importantly, Munkidori's Confusion. No more coin flips for me. Now that he's taken a couple prizes, an Iono to 4 should hopefully cause a bit of pain. His board is looking pretty strong, but 2 of his monkeys are offline. And that Psychic Energy is awkwardly stuck on the active Munkidori now. With no way to attack, I've just got to pass it back with my massive crab in the active. Given that it's only got a single energy, he reasonably chooses to ignore it and KO my Munkidori instead with Roaring Scream. Screamtail's only got 30 HP remaining though, so I just re-establish a Munkidori and KO it with Adrenabrain using that damage that was built up on Zoroark. Again, I still can't actually attack though, so it's just another Iono followed by a pass. Losing Screamtail means my opponent is kinda locked out of any real attacks this turn. The best they can do is 60 on my Crustle with Mind Bend, but thanks to Mist Energy, there's no confusion alongside it. Finally, I'm able to unleash my Crussle's superb scissors by ripping a Crispin for 2 energy. I also make sure to heal 30, overkilling Munkidori just to remove a bit of damage from play. My opponent's Super Rod recovers Screamtail, which could be his path through Crustle, but he actually benches another Pokemon which can also break through the mysterious rock in. Mew EX is able to use Genome Hacking to copy Superb Scissors and hit for 120 shred damage. However, I've finally unprized Reshiram and can absolutely close this game out from here. He goes in with Mew's Genome Hacking and a couple of Adrenabrains, dealing 180 total damage to the crab. Time to completely flip this board state. I power up Zoroark, then remove my heavily damaged Crustle from play with Professor Turo's Scenario. This is already good, but we can make it a complete checkmate. My opponent still has 3 prize cards remaining. They definitely can't win next turn, but they can absolutely disrupt me with any combination of Screamtail, Countercatcher, and Iono to 1. First, I make sure that my deck is as thin as possible. Then, I Pulpad back in a single Professor Turo's Scenario. This way, I'll be able to get out of any Countercatcher traps and still have a small enough deck that a couple trades will guarantee I find Night Stretcher if Reshiram is KO'd. He goes for the Roaring Scream, I throw down my Night Stretcher, and that's the game. I'm 2-0 now, and even if those were some less than standard games, I was still able to overcome Gardevoir. A matchup that was literally impossible for standard Crustle builds to deal with. This Zoroark technology might actually be legit. One more round for the tournament win and a lovely $125 store credit. I'm up against a Golden back to a nice easy matchup where Crustle's walling capabilities can shine. And I've got a really fast start too. Well, as fast as this crab can go. Poffin for another Dwebble and Zorua, plus Crispin to accelerate 2 energy onto my active, followed by Ascension to immediately evolve on turn 1, ensuring that I'll be safe to attack on the next turn. He's got absolutely nothing and just sets up another Gimmighoul on the bench. I'm still going at full speed though. Zoroark EX to start trading cards, another energy so I can swing with Superb Scissors, and I don't need anything else, so I just Arven to grab Luxurious Cape for some extra HP and a secret box to hold onto for later. Then I take the KO on his active Gimmighoul. This will give him access to a few more cards off Pheasantipity, but it really doesn't matter. At this point, my only lose condition is getting run over by Baby Goldengos. evolves. So controlling the Gimme Ghoul population is my #1 priority. My opponent benches another and sets up Genesect DX, but without any metal, he just has to do some minor errand running for energy. Again, this deck is pretty minimalistic, so I really don't need heaps. I just trade for a few more cards, attach to my bench Dwebble, and Arven for End's PP up and a Luxurious Cape, in case I need either of them later. Then it's just another clean Crustle KO, but I'm well aware that he's got all the pieces to start chipping away at my crab next turn, so this game isn't locked up yet. He does exactly that and swings in with Strike at Rich, one of his only real options to damage Crustle. However, it's got a big downside, and you can only deal substantial damage on the turn it actually evolves. So you need to either use Professor Turo's scenario and evolve up another Gimme Ghoul, or just hope that it gets KO'd and that you can bring it back with a Night Stretcher to reuse the attack. I immediately set up Monkey Dory and move 30 onto the Dengo. I actually still can't KO it because of that annoying grass resistance, but I don't really want to. Bossing up and KOing the benched Gimme Ghoul is much more effective, since without any way to reset Baby Goldengo, it's not a serious threat. He matches me with his own Monkey Dory, stacks a couple cards with Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, and then moves 30 damage with Adrenabrain, plus another 30 from an unboosted Strike at Rich. However, I get a second Monkey Dory online, and now I do have enough to KO Goldengo by using double Adrenabrain for 60. With only 90 total damage on my 250 HP Crustle, I'm feeling pretty safe. Those Cypher Maniac cards come into play as he evolves into Goldengo EX and uses coin bonus, and although it can't hurt Crustle, there are still other options for prize cards. He rips E-Search Pro and then bosses up my only Zoroark to grab a couple prize cards with Make It Rain. Now I need to be really careful about benching any other liabilities. My primary goal is to force him through multiple Crussles, not giving up any easy prizes. So the very first thing I do on my turn is set up a second Crab with another Luxurious Cape and a second Energy. Then I just use a couple of Adrenabrains paired with Superb Scissors for 150 damage after resistance. Considering I only have 2 prize cards remaining, my opponent is in serious danger. With only one real option to not just immediately lose next turn, he heals up 30 and chases down one of my Monkey Dories with Counter Catcher. Fortunately for me, Super Rod and Artisan immediately get the monkey back into play, and an Energy Switch enables yet another double Adrenabrain play for 150 damage, taking out Goldengo EX for my last 2 prize cards of game 1. That one was smooth sailing, but he wasn't able to get Togekiss online. And let me tell you, this next game is going to be nowhere near as easy. He opts for first once again and has a way better start. Double Buddy Buddy Poffin and an Earthen Vessel is pretty much everything you could ever ask for as a Dengo player. And there's that Togepi I was just talking about. Fortunately for me, I have an Arven, which means I have a Secret Box, which means I have a really clean setup on turn 1. Grabbing a Buddy Buddy Poffin, Artisan, Air Balloon, and a Crispin for next turn. I just retreat to Dwebble and use Ascension to instantly evolve up into Crustle. But over on his side, things are looking a lot more aggressive, immediately putting pressure on my Crab with a turn 2 Strike at Rich. And with 2 Gimme Ghouls in the back, a Professor Turo scenario would guarantee that he can recycle it. On top of all this, he's just Cypher stacked for 2 cards next turn. I could rip Crispin for 2 energy and attack this turn, but that actually seems like an awful idea, since even the 30 damage hit of Strike at Rich would finish me off. So I play it slow, evolving Zoroark for some draw, benching Monkey Dory with Artisan, evolving a second Crustle, and then using Arven to grab Energy Switch and a Luxurious Cape to keep my active Crab alive. My opponent sets up Goldengo EX on the bench for a bit of extra draw support, Arven's for Energy Search Pro, and then attaches onto the active Baby Goldengo. Now, I haven't mentioned it yet, but this guy has a second attack, and it's actually really threatening. Surf Back deals 100 damage for 3 colorless energy, and the Shuffle Back effect is completely optional. So if it ever gets fully powered up and goes unchecked, it'll tear through my Crussles. Luckily, he still needs 1 more energy, so it's just another 30 damage for now. You know what? I think it's time I started cooking. Artisan for a second Monkey Dory, Crispin to accelerate a Grass to Crustle and hand attach a Dark onto Monkey, Adrenabrain for 30, Energy Switch the Dark onto another Monkey Dory to use Adrenabrain again for 30, and then a second Energy Switch to finally move that Dark onto my active Crustle and take the KO. Come on, that play was kinda sick. He's got an equally powerful response lined up though. See, right now I'm only representing 4 non-Crustle prize cards on the board, so it should be impossible for him to win without dealing with the Crab. But a Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking that leads into a rare Candy Togekiss might just change that. Now every KO that he takes has a 50% chance to result in an extra prize. And with a Counter Catcher on my Monkey Dory, he can easily take one with Goldingo's Make It Rain. And that's a head, so it was actually worth 2 prize cards. I am absolutely terrified of Togekiss snowballing the rest of this game. So let's nip that little problem right in the bud. With my remaining Munkidori now online, I move 30 over to Togekiss, boss it up, and KO with Crustle. Now he'll need to deal with the crab at some point if he wants those last 4 prizes. Cypher Maniac provides his choice of any 2 cards, but without some gusting on this turn, all he can do is set up Munkidori and pass, because that Goldingo EX can't deal any damage to Crustle. I begin powering up my second Crustle just in case anything tragic happens to my active crab. Then I Iono us each down to 4 cards in hand and swing for 90 plus 30 more with an Adrenabrain. Other than draw a few more cards, my opponent really can't do anything here and settles for sending 30 damage back between our actives. But I am slowly winning this war. I set up a second Munkidori, and in order to avoid having 4 non-Crustle prize options on the board, I Professor Turo Scenario my Zoroark back to hand. I really can't see a way that he wins anymore, and just fully heal up the crab, swinging in for a total 150 damage. He goes for a boss's orders to try and stall up my second unpowered Crustle, but then realizes that there is absolutely 0 chance he wins this one and scoops it up. That's 3 wins and 0 losses for a big $125 dub. And yeah, 2 of these rounds were pretty one-sided, but I mean, that's just how Crustle goes. You play the deck because of its polarizing matchups in order to capitalize on an unsuspecting meta. The really cool part is that I was able to hold my own against Gardevoir, and it gives me some serious hope for this deck's potential. Anyway, I really appreciate you watching all the way through, and please let me know if you end up trying the deck for yourself. If you want to support me even more, you can do so as a YouTube channel member, Patreon supporter, or over on my Metafy group. Cheers, fellas.